Hi there, gaming buddies. This is a video response to Juice734 on handling experience points. Because this is a matter that differs from game system to game system, I'm going to go over some of the different games that I've run most recently and how I handle experience points in those, and then go over a bit deeper on my opinions. Let's start with the World of Darkness. The new World of Darkness, much like the old one, uses experience points as a kind of currency. You get it and you buy your character's attribute, skill, and merit progress with it. So you spend it. There, in the Hunter game that I ran, everyone who comes to the table can get experience points from all sorts of things, not just facing danger. And the ones who don't come to the table at that particular session, they miss out on it. But in that game, it's not that big of a deal to miss out on a couple of sessions. You don't fall behind quickly. But the system is very sort of generous in that, because the way skills and all these things are bought, the higher you go, the more expensive they get. So the price goes up constantly. So it's not that big of a deal to give out individual experience. But even those people who don't make it to all the games, they still get credit if they come to some of the games and are an active part of a certain chapter of the story. So when the chapter ends, they get those additional experience points as well. And Hunter also has this cool thing where they have one Hunter cell has a communal experience point pool that you can sort of agree with the other guys that, is it okay if I take 4 points and add to my driving skill? And usually they go, yeah, sure, you've been driving a lot anyway, so that makes sense. So you can draw from it. So that's one of the things that actually alleviates a great deal. If someone is falling behind a bit, they can tap into the communal experience pool, which is a very cool idea. Now, in a completely different type of mechanic, but in Pathfinder, I don't give out individual experience points at all. I don't even keep track of experience points. In fact, I just say that, okay, now that we've reached this part of the plot, everyone goes up a level. Now, absent players who can come into games every now and then, but they're not always at the table, they do get the same experience this way. However, those players might miss out on story rewards and treasure, of course. Treasure is simple enough, they don't get a share in the loot, but story rewards are something that I've come up with years ago, but this is a very good incentive. The players, by performing certain deeds in the story, reaching certain milestones, so to speak, they can get additional attribute points, skill points, additional feats, and of course, as Pathfinder introduced all these different traits, I also use traits for this. I make my own. So that's the way I handle it with Pathfinder, and it's just simple, you know. Counting every experience point in a game like Pathfinder is, I think, a bit of a waste of time. It's not that big of a deal anyway, because you are supposed to keep some kind of a level playing field within the party, because level discrepancy in Pathfinder is a huge deal. Now, in a different fantasy game, Dungeon Crawl Classics, I use a mix of these. Most of the time it goes like this. The people who are at the table get experience points from that session. And if a certain story is brought to a milestone, again, the people who are active in it, just like in Hunter, they get additional XP. However, those people who make significant sacrifices, pull off some really clever thinking or planning, um, make some kind of heroic effort that does not involve the dice, meaning that it's not just a die roll that I'm rewarding. They do get additional experience points. For example, I did reward one of the clerics in our game just for playing up the aspect of his faith. He had been doing it from the start, and yeah, I thought it especially at a certain dramatic event that happened, it played out well. That's why he got the additional point. But I do try to keep those additional rewards sort of even, so that everyone gets some now and then. I give them some time, a special time in the spotlight to pull off their thing to ensure that. Now, so those are the... And oh, one other thing about DCC. Since it only goes up to level 10 and the level progress is very slow, there the distance between characters' experience point pools is not that big of a deal either. And the game is just as lethal at higher levels than it is at lower levels. So, yeah, I mean, the characters do get more powerful, but not in the same manner as they do in, for example, Pathfinder or 4th edition. So, that's that. After saying all of that, I don't like the traditional way of handing out individual experience points. I think it can be way too time consuming even if it's done after a session. And if you do it after a session or even after you leave and you're home and you're going over your notes, you have to think back on how everyone performed and what they did where, and it can get very, very muddled. You know, you can't keep track of everything. You're just one person. And it has the downside that it might skew the rewards toward certain types of not just characters but players. If you have a plot, an adventure that has a lot of traps in it and a lot of puzzles in it, and you think that, yeah, this will be fun for at least two of my players who are clever people, and one of the guys always likes to roll a thief, so here we go. That's fine, but there might be a guy that is not that quick when it comes to figuring out different sorts of puzzles. That's not his forte. So, and he doesn't like playing thieves or any kind of character like that, so he makes a barbarian. He might even like reason it in a way that, okay, we don't really have a frontline warrior in this group, so I'm gonna fill that spot, because although the game master said that it's not the focus of the story, it will probably still come up. And even if you do challenge that warrior, give them stuff to do, those traps and puzzles are going to probably give a more significant bonus to the experience, because that's what you put most of your work on. So this might start creating a gap between the two kinds of players in the group and the two characters. And of course, this is the reason why I like group experience points in a game like D&D, where I just see it as, okay, it's a big story and everyone in the group is sort of trying to act together to they use all of their abilities to help the group and just pull through whatever they're doing. So yeah, that's why I reward group XP in a game like D&D most of the time. And those additional rewards are just there to sweeten the pot and make sure that the players who don't miss any games, they get a little extra, but it's not experience, it's a different factor to the character. And in some games, missing out on XP might be seen as a punishment, but most of the time not really. It's not that big of a deal if you keep it sort of the group power level sort of the same, as close as you can get at least. And like you said, Juice, I would not ever, as the game master, play a player character, or much less give control of that character to anyone else. I do it the way you suggested, that the PC operates behind the scenes, out of view. They cannot aid the party in any way. They do. They have sort of plot protection. You know, they can't die or be hindered, or maybe they can be hindered, but they can't be mechanically affected by whatever events are happening. If there's a siege and the castle gets taken and the guy who wasn't present, well, he either gets captured without suffering any huge wounds, or he evades capture and escapes. That's just fine as well, whichever way the story might take you. And those solo sessions that you suggested, they can work. They're a good way of sort of bridging the gap, but they should be, if you use them, should be as short and simple as possible. You shouldn't run an entire couple-hour session with the absent player, because you don't want to complicate the plot or the main group's plans, the people who actually do make it to the table. So, you know, the one guy that's not even there, they can't be making plot-altering decisions by themselves. Since they're not there, they can't. Even if they talk to the group outside of the game, keep up through Facebook or whatever, it's still a bit, I'd say, bad form to give one person the reins just like that. So keep it very restricted. But yeah, those side adventures can be fun. As for new players or new characters, if a character gets killed, or if you just want a player wants to, you know, they've played this character for a long time, but now they're just bored, they can't figure out where to take them, so they want to create a new one. If the party is not, in a level-based game, is not at level 1, I never, ever, ever make the new person, the new character, start at level 1. Not ever. This is highly problematic in a level-based system like D&D. Even if your experience point rewards are sort of enhanced, even if you give them some limited resource, like you said, the magic item, that's a good idea, a clever one. I applaud you for that. But I don't think it's enough, because so much of the character's ability and viability in the group depends on those levels. In a game like D&D, Pathfinder, DCC a little bit less so, but still it's important. So I for example, in a Pathfinder game, if someone makes a new character, a new player comes in, they have the same level as everyone else. They don't need to play catch up. because that's not the point of the game. The earning the experience is not the main focus of the game. It's getting through the story and surviving, um, and role playing. So I don't make them run laps just to catch up to everyone else. In Pathfinder, like I said, the new character does not have any of those story rewards. So they might be several skill points, feats, or attribute points behind. They don't have any of those special traits that give bonuses to saving throws against fire attacks or what have you. And in Pathfinder, I tend to run very low magic kind of games. Um, there are some high magic components, but players are never just swimming in magical loot. I don't use the wealth by level chart ever. It's just sort of a loose guideline. So I give them at least enough money to buy at least 2 handy magical items. And yeah, off they go. They can join. And they are useful right out of the gate. So that's the big deal. In DCC, it's a bit different. I tend to use, if someone's character dies or they want to make a new one, the new character comes in at the same experience point total as the person who has the least in the group. So if the highest folks have over 200 and one guy only has like 110, well, the new character comes in at 110. This is because I don't, in DCC it's a bit more, the flavor is different, and because there are only 10 levels and leveling is slower, I don't want to reward just changing characters or making reckless decisions, because there it is very much about the survival. So that's why they get, they get substantially more powerful character than just being a level 1, but there is still that sort of difference to the guys who really did survive, who have managed to survive for a long time. But overall, those are my opinions. And individual experience, don't really like it. I don't, in a level-based system at least, I don't think it's worth the hassle. And yeah, it's best to just keep everyone at even keel. So thank you for watching and have a very nice day.